The Badge to the Bone podcast contains adult language, mature themes, psychological nudity. Viewer discretion is advised. The opinions expressed here are ours and ours alone. Buckle up.
All right, welcome back to Badge to the Bone podcast. I'm Denny.
I'm Al.
And Al, another episode is here.
Yes, it is. Let's get after it.
Hey, Al.
How you doing, Denny?
We're here again.
We are.
Steaming right along.
We are. Knock on wood.
Right,
Nothing's going wrong yet.
Now you just jinxed it. Now let me check all the settings and make sure the settings are okay, because you just jinxed it. Now make sure everything looks all right. But you know, and the emails keep coming. We're getting people reaching out.
We are. We are.
And tonight's guest is also reached out.
Yes.
So it was awesome to get an email, you know, and it's also awesome getting emails. We're getting them from all over the country.
Yeah.
Actually, most of them are coming from far away from where we are.
Clear on the other side of the continent.
Which was not what I would expect. I'd expected it's just the locally around that we'd be hearing the most from, but we've been getting a lot of communication from out west.
Yeah.
Which is really awesome.
Yeah, we got I got somebody contacting us from Washington.
That's right.
And Columbus, Ohio.
That's right. Yeah, Columbus. I remember you're talking about that. That sounds like it might be good. And then we've got one that's going to drop here. Well, actually, by the time this one hits, that one will have dropped, I believe. You know, because we're so far ahead. But
knock on wood.
right.
We're ahead.
But tonight we've got Danny Coon, and he sent us an email. And Danny, he's a retired sergeant from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, and he spent 30 of his 31 years of service assigned to field ops patrol. And man, I tell you what, that has got to be a busy time.
Well, that's only one of the biggest, most prominent sheriff's office in the country.
Yeah.
And one of the craziest jurisdictions in the country.
And 30 years in field ops. That's a lot. So, but he has worked as a patrol deputy, a field training officer, detective team leader, and sergeant. And he now has, with inspiration from God, is what dedicated him to educating first responders on the effects of PTSD, post-traumatic stress injury, and suicide prevention. And I think that's an awesome mission.
Oh yeah, and just having some conversation with him earlier. I mean, he went into retirement and he made this his mission.
Yeah, that's great. And he's here now. Danny, thank you so much for joining Badge to the Bone podcast.
Danny and Al, thank you very much for having me. It is a pleasure to be joining with you guys.
It's awesome to have you. Thanks so much for reaching out to us. I was excited to get your email and get you scheduled to record, and this is great. But and we talked a little bit before we came on and started actually recording and putting the hot mics on. But you talked about that you did retire, like Al mentioned, and then after retirement, you got driven to really step into this education for the post-traumatic stress and suicide prevention. What sparked that?
Well, I retired in 2013, and when I retired, I said I was done. I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was just tired. And as we came into 2018, I had some personal tragedies. My father passed away. My wife's sister passed away. My wife was diagnosed with lung cancer. And it was just a lot of stuff came out. And then a lot of the feelings that I had suppressed for 31 years just started just popping out.
Yeah.
And I read an article about law enforcement suicide, and I learned that more law enforcement officers die every year by suicide than in the line of duty. And to put that in perspective, in the first 48 days of this year, 18 law enforcement officers, police officers, peace officers, deputy sheriffs have died in the line of duty, and there have been, or reported, reported died by suicide. And in the line of duty, there is 16, not including the 2 that were died on February 18th. So that hasn't officially been recorded yet. So I go with the official recording.
Yep.
But that is still, more than in the line of duty deaths. Let's take last year. There was 128, I believe, law enforcement suicides. And you put that in perspective, there was 125 line of duty deaths. And as you go backwards, it gets, it's almost at 1 year, there was more than twice as many law enforcement suicides than line of duty deaths. So it just got my attention, and I go, there's something that's got to be done. And living near where I live at now is down in northern San Diego County. I live by a major Marine Corps base. And I started talking about some of the Marines coming back, and they coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and they were talking about they have PTSI or PTSD, and just started talking to them about them, and I go, you know what? Law enforcement's the same thing. First responders, we're doing the same thing, seeing the same junk, and it's not a everyday war zone like they were in for a year, but it's pretty intense in our half. And I started looking into it. There wasn't a lot of people talking about it. And I go, this time we got to start the conversation. So I started writing blogs that I was posting on Facebook. And I was just posting on a couple of Facebook groups from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, and just to get the word out from the agency that I worked for. And at the same time, I met a guy. He turns out to be the one of the founders of the Mighty Oaks Foundation, and at the time he was the director of it. And he told me, you got to get a website, and then you got to start writing this professionally and doing. So I did build a website. I started blogging, which I post on about probably 20 or 30 Facebook groups that involve law enforcement and first responders. And I also do it on several on LinkedIn. I post stuff on Instagram. And so I'm getting the message out. And also in the meantime, I wrote a book called Broken, Understanding the Effects of Post-Traumatic Stress.
Wow,
and
good for you. So
it's my part is I just want to get people educated about it, because it's something that we need to know about. Law enforcement, we trained. Even on the fire side, they train for different scenarios on putting out fires and doing their job. But in law enforcement, we train all the time on officer survival, officer safety. It's almost every day we do it. Because we go to briefing and you talk about it in briefing. What would you do if this happened? But no one, never once in my 31 years has anybody talked about law enforcement suicide. Never. And it's never. I come from the largest Sheriff's Department in the United States, from like the 4th largest law enforcement agency in the United States. I mean, we're huge. We got a budget of over $2 billion. And they don't talk about law enforcement suicide. Never in the academy, never when I was in patrol, never at any of the trainings I did in 31 years. And it needs to be addressed. And when we get there, this year, or last year, 2023, there was 128 law enforcement suicides. 9 of those came from one department, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. That is just under 8% of all law enforcement suicides came from one department. 4 of them were on one day. It was November 6th. Very, very dark day. In a 24-hour period, 3 active members and 1 recently retired member died by suicide. 3 weeks before that, a retired member died by suicide. And during the earlier portions of 2023, 4 other deputies died by suicide. And it's something that has never been addressed. And when I look at it, I go back 10 years. Now, I don't know the statistics on officers who died or deputy sheriffs who died on the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department by suicide in the last 10 years, but I know about 2023. But in the last 10 years, from 2018 to 2020, from 2013 to 2023, only 2 deputy sheriffs have been killed in the line of duty by violence, by a gunshot. Plenty of cops die every year by car accidents and training issues or training accidents and stuff like that. But only 2 from one department died in a 10-year period by violence, and 9 in 1 year died by suicide. And so we have to look at what are we addressing here, where we are addressing, putting our resources at. We spend billions or millions of dollars every year teaching about trying to stay alive, but we spend nothing on educating our deputies and our police officers about it. So it's sad but true. This year, well, lost my thought there, but this year on the fire department side, the fire department's only had 8 firefighters die in the line of duty. 4 of them been by heart attack, by cardiac arrest. On the law enforcement side, last year I think there were 16 cops that died by cardiac arrest. But we're not talking about the 128 that died by suicide.
Right.
So it's just sad that the conversation isn't there. People are now starting to talk about it a little bit more, opening up about it. But who really knows? The department I came from, I reached out to people that are still working and asked them what the department's response was since November 6th, and it's been mostly crickets. The administrations throughout the United States, they're not addressing their problem. They're not addressing the problem. They're just kicking the can down the road. Yeah, and we can't have that. We need to get everybody educated.
That's amazing to hear that a single agency would have that many suicides and it not launch some talk, conversation, discussion, something wouldn't be, someone doesn't go, hey, there's an issue here. Or you would think that your command staff, you'd think your administration would be like, okay, we need to do better because our people are dying by their own hands. And to hear that they're not, man, that's just really disheartening.
Yeah, yes. In I believe it was 2022, New York Police Department had like 7 law enforcement suicides for the year. Chicago had 4 or 5 in 1 month, in the month of December.
Yeah, I remember
San Antonio had
that
7.
well.
But and you look, Chicago stepped up and started talking about it. They started addressing the issue and trying to change things around, and where I believe New York PD did the same thing. San Antonio, Texas, with their 7, they started the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But large departments on the West Coast, I don't see it starting yet. Hopefully it will. And it's right now, I think everybody's just, a lot of departments are just scrambling to keep the cars filled with officers for patrol and to keep the ball running, because when you're working when you're 20% understaffed, 25% understaffed, some agencies are 30% understaffed, it's kind of hard to address everything. And that's another issue, because Kevin Gilmartin, he wrote the Hypervigilant book, Survival for Law Enforcement, and he writes on hypervigilance. And he talks about the hypervigilance cycle, and that's where before you go to work, you're on you're kind of just getting ready for go to work. You're going to do a 10 or 12 hour shift. Hopefully, I'm kind of hoping everybody gets off the 8-hour shift thing, and you get that 10 or 12 hour shift. And so as you're getting ready to work, your blood pressure's going up a little bit. You're getting a little bit amped up to go to work. Mm-hmm. And on one of your guest podcasts, or one of your guests I listened to, he mentioned that he used to listen to rap music to get him ready to go to work. And what I used to do when I worked gangs, I used to listen to Fuck the Police by NWA.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I was working very well. You kind of crank that up on your way to work. But
that's right.
What that's really doing, it's getting you in the right mindset. But what it's really doing is it's amping up your system. And by the time you're ready to work, you're ready to go out and rock and
Oh,
roll
yeah.
and have some fun. And you're going to go do this
Yep.
all day long. You're going to go rouse gangbangers. You're going to chase the radio to all the hot calls. And at the end of shift, you just can't turn that light off. You're off work. You're all amped up. You go, hey guys, let's go out for a beer. And you go across the street, have a couple, or you go out to we used to go to parks. We'd go wherever. And when it's all over with, you drive home, and then you get home. Your wife's mad at you because you're drunk, but you get home, and she's mad because you've been out drinking and you're not hungry and you're kind of bitchy, and you sit down and you all of a sudden you become a couch potato because the bottom drops out. You get to the top of that roller coaster, and then boom, you're going straight down. And you get down in there and you do nothing, and your system just never catches up, and not until really your days off. And then if you're working on your days off and getting an overtime spot here or there, it just you never, and you just keep on going up and down, up and down, up and down, and you're burning out your hypothalamus, your pituitary glands. You're burning out your mental state. Everything that is up in your head, you're just cooking it because it's going to short circuit, because our bodies are just one big electrical system anyway. And once you start short circuiting those circuits, you're going to start having issues.
Yeah.
And I was reading an issue on hypervigilance. There's a retired Secret Service agent who wrote a book, and he talks about the hypervigilant cliff. And what he talks about is, when you first get onto the job, the distance you may fall is like the low end of a curb. And as years go by, it might get up to a curb. And, at the end of a 30-year career, I got a long ways to go, because it's a long ways down to fall off that cliff. And that's what people do, is they don't know how to manage their bodies. They don't know how to manage themselves. They don't know how to manage their environment. And when they get to that point, that's why you don't hear a lot of retirees dying by suicide by gunshot, but you hear a lot of retirees dying in the first 5 years. Actually, about 50% of retirees die within the first 5 years because of bad health, because they killed themselves through alcoholism. They killed themselves through eating at McDonald's every day. They killed themselves just from being a couch potato because they've been on that cycle for so long. And that's how far that cliff is. And it's once you get up there, you have to figure out how to slowly work your way back down. And that's something that is all in this envelope or umbrella of suicide awareness and suicide education. There was a Dave Grossman. He's a retired lieutenant commander or lieutenant colonel from the Army. He's a sleep expert. He's a psychologist. Him and numerous studies have shown talks about sleep deprivation and how bad that is. And there's a suicidologist. I never heard of that term before until I read about it. A suicidologist, Rebecca Burnhouse. She's out of Stanford. And she did a 10-year study and showed that when in sleep deprivation, people who are sleep deprived have a 1.4 greater chance of committing suicide than those who aren't sleep deprived. And that's pretty interesting.
I would venture that it might actually even be higher than that.
Yeah,
I agree. And this is what I was alluded to in our pre-talk, is one of the deputies who died by suicide from the Sheriff's Department on November 6th. His family is now suing the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, the County of Los Angeles, because her husband was working over 96 hours of overtime a month. And the department, when I left the department, you could not work more than 96 hours. And they have waived that rule, and they're pushing up to 120, 130 hours a month. So you're basically working, you're working a double a day, a regular shift, a double, 18 hours, 18 hours 10, 18 hours 10, and then you hit your days off and you're hitting another 28 hour or 18-hour shift. And that's just crazy.
You can't sustain that. You just can't sustain it.
Yeah,
and we all know why they're doing it. They're doing it because they don't have the bodies.
They don't have people that
it's
want to
it's
work.
But
it's the bodies. It's the
They're
times right now.
driving them into the ground.
Yep.
There was a Los Angeles Sheriff's deputy who was murdered a month before. And he was another one who was at the tail end of his week of working 96 hours. And his family is also suing because of the work or the work overload that they're doing from sleep deprivation. But it's a very serious, it's something I'm looking into now, and I'm going to be blogging about it a lot in the future as I learn more about it. So that's just something you have to be aware of. You know, numerous studies, and Dave Grossman actually said within the military, sleep deprivation is the #1 cause of suicide. And that's pretty ballsy for him to come out and say that, but he said it. He knows the numbers, and they also say that being awake for 18 hours, you would be the equivalent of somewhere between a 0.05 and a 0.08
That's right.
blood alcohol, and then after that, you're pushing a 0.10.
Yep.
And that's just some scary things. You got cops at the end of an 18-hour shift, driving around like zombies,
I mean, I remember working midnight shift, and I did say, I mean, I worked patrol, and then I worked the extra work jobs, the off-duty jobs, and I remember coming home on a midnight shift on the highway, and I've missed my exit before, where I'm just on autopilot, and then I'm like, oh shit, I didn't get off the highway, and then I've been driving, and I've all of a sudden just like, holy shit, I don't even remember, driving the past several miles. I just don't even remember it. It's like I'm just completely on autopilot, and I'm like, wow, that is scary. And I found myself nodding off. I found where I would catch myself. I'm kind of like you're gonna doze off, and I catch myself, and I'm like, man, another millisecond of me nodding off, and I'd have been out cold. Because you're so tired, you're so fatigued.
Yeah,
it's funny because I retired in July, and I worked evenings, I worked mids, and then a big chunk of my career I was in investigations, and I worked for a non-traditional agency, and we kept a schedule that was all over the map. So one day you'd be working 9 to 5, and then the next day you'd be working 7P to 4A, and it was just all over the map. And so here I am now retired, and my wife sometimes gets really frustrated with me because she's like, your sleep schedule is just, your entire sleep thing is just fucked up.
All out of whack. All out of whack. I'll give you another one. And I like to tell this because it's kind of funny. And since I'm no longer working for that agency and some time has passed, I think I'm okay. But I remember working, this was when I was a sergeant, and I was on midnight shift. And it's 12-hour midnight shift. And I can't remember if that was one of those weeks where I worked some extra days at the hospital but I was dragging tired by the end of the shift. And I remember pulling my patrol car in, and I lived out of the jurisdiction, so I didn't take my car home. If you live in the jurisdiction, you could take your car home, but I did. So I lived out. So I pull in, and I'm in my car for probably maybe the last 20 minutes or so of the shift. And then I go ahead, I hop in my truck, lock up the car, and I drive on home. And I get home, and it's one of those where I'm on autopilot, and I'm like, man, I don't even remember leaving the county and getting into my county where I live. I'm like, holy shit. I get home, and I was so tired. I get home, and I didn't, I have a routine. I have all my gear goes in a certain spot. My gun belt went a spot with all my gear. My gun went in the specific safe, and I didn't even do it. I mean, I literally just dropped the gun belt on the floor right there and shed the uniform shirt and pants, and I was in the bed because it was all I could do to get into bed. And I slept, and I was out cold probably till about maybe 11th or right around lunchtime. And then I wake up, and I'm like, man, I really want to sleep more, but let me put my shit away. I got, gun belt laying on the floor. I got keepers laying on the floor and stuff. And I'm picking up my stuff. And I used to keep my car key was clipped on my belt keeper. My front belt keeper was where my key ring was, where I had my handcuff key and my car key. And I can't find it. I'm like, where the hell is my damn car key? So I'm looking, I'm like, what in the hell? And I go through all my stuff, and I go through my bed. I'm digging under the bed. I'm everywhere. And I'm like, Did I drop it? Did I leave it downstairs? I'm so tired, and I'm hunting the house for it. And finally, I'm like, you know what? Did I even shut my car off?
Shit.
I called the desk officer, and I don't know if he listens to the podcast. If he does, he's gonna be laughing, listening. But I called the desk officer. I said, "I need you to do me a favor. Can you run outside?" And my sergeant car is parked out on the end. He's like, "Yeah, I know where you park it." I said, "Can you go check, make sure my car is locked up?" I said, I can't find my key. I don't know if I left it unlocked or left my key in the car. And I thought maybe I left it in the seat or something like that. He's, yeah, Sarge, I'll go check it. A minute or two later, he comes back. He said, "Yeah," he said, "your keys are in the car and it's running." And I was like, "Oh shit, is it really?" He's like, "Yeah," he said, "and it's locked up." He said, "You got a spare key in the box here?" And I hadn't put my spare key in that box yet. We're usually supposed to keep a spare key in our car. So there was no spare key and that's, a 30-minute drive for me. And I was like, and this is like, we're at lunchtime. It's been running since 6 a.m., sitting out there all morning. And I was like, ah, damn it. So I'm like, do I drive all the way back and shut it down? And I don't have to be at work till 6 p.m. And I was like, all right, well, just do me a favor. Keep an eye on it while you're there. I'm going to try to come again. I don't know when I'm going to. He's like, "Oh, I got it. I'll watch it." I could see it through the window. So I said, the hell with it. I waited, and that car ran all day long in the parking lot till I got to work at about 5:45 to get it. And sure enough, it was sitting out there running.
Holy
I
crap.
had no idea. I mean, I guess I just got out of it, locked the door, got in my truck, and drove off. The car sitting out there, damn thing running. At least I logged off the computer. But I was just so fatigued, so tired.
Before I retired, we had all of our cars, year models are keyed the same, so we never had a problem of not having a key to a car.
That's good.
But someone in their infinite wisdom decided, and I think they did this for the dog handlers and people that had a specific need to always have their car running, is they put in the old Crown Vics, they put in a system called secure idle. So you'd put your car, you push this button and secure idle, take your key out, and the engine would be running. You shut the door and the door's locked. And on many occasions, guys they'd get gas, they'd take their cars, and this is mainly when I was a detective, it was the detectives doing this, is they'd refuel their cars, they'd take it over and park it on the line where the detective cars were, push the button for secure idle, go inside, change, go home. The next day, the car's out of gas. We got to push it over to the gas pump.
Oh, jeez. Always the detectives, too.
And what it was when we were detectives, the department was making the detectives do an extra shift. Well, we did, I think, one extra shift a week in patrol. So we just threw a rain jacket on or put on some kind of an ID and driving around and continue to do our detective work, logged on as a radio car, because when I was working in Compton, they had so many trainees there, you wouldn't even get a call for service, so we just do our regular work. But it was, the guys would just push that button, secure idle, and go home.
Well, it just goes to show you that it breeds a host of problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's a danger. It's dangerous.
But then, and there's another layer of stress that comes with that when you are sleep deprived and, like you said, you're coming home, you've done that 96-hour week or whatever. You come home, you're burnt out, all that emotional energy dumps, and if you got a wife, you got a kid, you're trying to interact with them normally, and it's hard.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then because you often fail at that, yet another layer of stress gets added to it.
Yep. Yeah.
It's never ending. And one of the things I'm interested in is, the old cliche is cops like donuts. And I always thought that, we like donuts because at 3:30 in the morning, the only place to get a cup of coffee was a donut shop because the baker was in making donuts. But that's not necessarily true. When you start looking at your your sleep-wake cycle, your circadian cycle, as you get more sleep deprived, you start to, for some reason, start to crave carbohydrates. You start to crave sugary foods. You start to crave alcohol. You start all the things that are making us
Yep.
fat.
Yep.
And unfortunately, law enforcement is probably one of the fattest or most obese professions there is in the United States, and it's crazy to when I see those numbers, and it's like insane, and that's how we're killing ourselves by not using a firearm or hanging or poison or anything else. And it's sleep deprivation is a huge issue, and it's going to be fun to continue my studies in this. I'm reading a book now talking about how artificial light circumvents your system, and because the way we were built, the way God made us is, you go to bed at night when it's dark, and you get up in the morning when the sun's out. And during those periods of when the sun's out till the sun goes down, you eat. Yep. Now, we work in shift work. You're working a graveyard shift. You're driving around. You might have a little map light on. You got your dashboard lights shining in your eye. You got all the cars around you shining in your eye. You're consistently playing with your flashlight, shining those in other people's eyes. And then you go into the station, and it's lit up like daylight in there. And your system gets all jacked up and all screwed up, and it doesn't know what time it is. And then you go home and you try to sleep, and no matter how dark you get, it's still going to take some time. So what do? You go home, I can't sleep. You pound down a bunch of beers. And then you think, oh, I'm going to, and you go to sleep, but you're awake 2 hours later because the beer wore off, and your system says, nope, time to get up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's that
beer
it's a
and
never
half a
ending
Tylenol
cycle.
PM.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, man, it messed my system up so bad. Lots of times I would try to do on that first day off, I would try to stay up all day. So I'd hopefully be tired by the time it was time to go to bed. But the effect of that was by noon, I was a raging asshole because I hadn't had any sleep and everything drove me crazy. And I was so angry at everything. I was terrible. And then, 10:30, 11 o'clock it hit, and I'm like, oh, I'm about to just collapse here. I'm so tired. I'm going to sleep good tonight. And I'd hit the pillow and I'd be out for 30 minutes. And next, my eyes would open up and be like, son of a bitch. I can't go to sleep. It's nighttime, but my body thinks, oh, you probably should be going to work. And I'm been up all day long. It's terrible.
I can already tell this is an episode that I do not want my wife to listen to.
Well, mine has lived it.
She will be sitting there going, yep. You asshole.
Yeah.
It's okay.
She knows 100%. Yeah.
I get called an asshole every day. So.
I think that's just called marriage.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's what it does to you. That sleep is I used to drink energy drinks like crazy.
Oh no, see, I didn't do that. But
I
would drink the shit out of some coffee.
I was addicted to energy drinks. I mean, I would drink one on the way into roll call, and I'd usually drink at least one more about midway through shift. And sometimes I'm 3 a day.
Oh God.
Oh, that's too much. That's
terrible.
Energy.
I just joked that they said, you're not going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm like, look, these 2 to 3 energy drinks a day is just for me to maintain. This is not what keeps me awake. This is just to maintain. That's how bad it is. Oh, terrible.
Yeah, if you know the effects of caffeine, what it does to you.
Oh, it's awful. I do my 1 cup of coffee in the morning now, and that's it.
Yeah.
I haven't had any drink in 4 years now, I think? I haven't touched them.
I don't touch them, but I still drink the hell out of them.
I finally got off of them. They're terrible for you. And I said, that's it. No more energy drinks. And it's been probably about 4 years now.
Yeah. In my book, I talk a little bit about sleep deprivation and the effects of caffeine and energy drinks. Oof. It was surprising. I learned that a lot of agencies are now starting to ban energy drinks from their facilities. You can't keep a cop from drinking. I can go to 7-Eleven, pick up a Monster.
Right.
But, they're not selling them in vending machines. They're not stocking them in refrigerators or anything. Energy drinks aren't allowed in the facilities, which is smart because it's a completely different health hazard and will blow your heart up.
Well, me and a guy that I worked with, a friend of mine, we both were, addicted, and we drank energy drinks like crazy. And we used to joke and laugh, and we said we were going to make our own energy drink and make a killing on it, but we were going to call it excessive force energy drink. And I'm like, we're going to get sued, because cops are going to drink and they're going to beat somebody up. And I'm like, it was the excessive force I drank, and so we're going to get sued. And but it was a good idea at the time. But
No,
thank
actually,
goodness.
the excessive force isn't because of the energy drink. It's actually because of
Right.
sleep deprivation. That's one of those.
That's right.
That's true.
That's one of those poor decisions. When you're sleep deprived, we tend to make very poor decisions.
Yeah.
And that's one of the poor decisions. You're just not going to put up anybody's crap, so you're going to knock him upside the head, or you're going to use a little bit more force than normally would, or you're going to body slam him or do something. And that's
Now you got to complain.
back in the 80s, it was great. You could do it and get away with it, but not anymore. Too many cell phones.
Yeah, nowadays you're arrested.
Yeah.
So, Danny, the issue with officer suicide, I mean, obviously it's been something that's been out there forever, but it really does feel like it's only kind of come to the forefront and something that we're actually talking about just in the last few years. I mean, probably less than a decade that those conversations are being had. And so I guess what I want to get to is you had 31 years on the job, plus all these years doing this in retirement. Do you see differences in these things over time? Is it worse than it was? Is it the same and we're just noticing it?
I tend to believe it's the same.
Mhm.
It might be a little more amplified because our times are a little bit more violent than it was in the 80s. Although in the 80s we had the drug wars in LA, where
Yeah.
3 or 4 people a night were getting, either in LAPD's area or in the sheriff's area, were getting shot up with AK-47s and stuff like that. So that part of the violence isn't the same, or is somewhat the same. But there's other things that you see that maybe now it's a little more amplified. But a story I have goes back to about, I want to say about 1987. Is I was working at the Sheriff's East Los Angeles station. It's basically known for the home of Hispanic gangs in California. And some of the most dangerous gangs are Hispanic gangs are from that area. MA, the Mexican Mafia, they're from there. They're now a nationwide street gang. MS, what is it, MS-13 or whatever they are, they're occupying that area now, real big. And but a lot of the street gangs, Hispanic street gangs, came from East Los Angeles. And I remember one night had worked graveyard shift for 3 years, and to me that was the best shift to work because there's no brass around and you get off when everybody's coming to work, so there's no traffic going home, and it's just a good shift. And no one messes with you because the watch sergeant's in asleep. So
Agreed.
yeah, and, I started becoming a training officer, and one night I'd gotten off work, and a guy I knew, we were acquaintances. We worked different shifts. We knew each other. He came up to me and says, "Hey, you got a couple of minutes? Can we talk?" Sure. So we sat in his car, and he talked to me for about an hour, just venting everything that's going on in his life. And he didn't know me from Adam, other than I worked a different shift. And he talked and talked and talked, and all he really wanted to do was to someone that would listen. And I just happened to be that guy that night that would listen. And it seemed like back then, more people were talking to each other. We'd get off work and you'd go have a beer, and you'd talk to your partner, or, the 2 or 3 guys you're having a beer with. You're talking, you know what, that call was really messed up. That shook me a little bit. And it doesn't seem like that's happening anymore. And they found that peer counseling anyway is more beneficial for people seeking help than professional counseling, especially professional counseling from your department, because no one trusts the counselors from your department.
Yeah.
But
That's a big hurdle.
yeah, I remember the Los Angeles riots in '92. We worked, I'm thinking 5 20-hour shifts. So we were from the time we left our work area to the time we got back from our work area. it was a 20-hour day. So you got figured 4 hours of sleep. So you're actually getting about 2 hours of sleep.
Yep.
We did 5 of those. And at the end of it, the last day we did that, we didn't have to travel. They kept us at our unit of assignment and said if they need us, we'll have to, jump on the bus, and because they had big sheriff buses, they were taking us to it. And we'd have to jump on the bus and go. But for the most part, everybody just laid around and slept because we were so burnt out and tired. And you just talked. You talked about what you're seeing at the riots, because it's the first day of the riots. We're there and we're gaffling up a bunch of people who were looting a building in the city of Los Angeles, and through the smoke, because the building was on fire, you hear the typical cack, 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 and AK-47s make a very distinct noise, and you hear that noise and you see windows on our radio cars getting blown out, and then what do our dummies do? We go running into. Well, at the end of the day, you had to talk about that, because that was some pretty scary stuff. It was fun, but scary. And people, when I say fun, they don't understand that, but yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
But
If you're not LA, you don't understand that.
yeah,
You don't get it.
it's
You say
just
that to the wrong person. What is wrong with you?
Right. When anybody says it's terrifying, it is terrifying, but that there's an adrenaline to that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you
terror.
get that adrenaline rush, which isn't good for you.
No, that's not either. But I mean, you thrive on it. But you get there. I mean, I gotta say, when you have that gunfire and you're running to it, there's I can't describe anything else that really feels that way when that adrenaline pumps up. And
Oh yeah, there's a lot of things that feel that way. It's just, you know, I in my retirement party, I have mentioned that the best time in the department was the riots. There was a
Right.
couple of very high-ranking people in the department that looked at me weird and said, "So you're sick." But
So you don't think you're saying that you think, like, for example, suicide rates probably stayed consistent.
I believe
But
that the suicide rates have consistently been higher than the line of duty death rates.
right.
Yeah.
But
And
within the profession,
within law enforcement. And where I'm looking at is before 2010, you never really heard of post-traumatic stress disorder. I prefer to say post-traumatic stress injury, because that's what it is. You
Mhm.
never
Yep, agreed.
really heard about that until you started listening to guys coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. And these guys
Yeah.
were deployed, they're coming back. And so people are starting to look at it. And I think somewhere along the line, people in the law enforcement professions and in the fire service started getting on the coattails of the PTSI thing with the military and says, "Hey, what about us?" And it's true. But when I started this in about 2018, it was a very shallow field.
Mhm.
And today it seems like the arena is very crowded. It's not very crowded. It can get a lot more crowded than it is, because we need to continue the conversation. If you can reach out and touch 3 or 4 or just one person out of
Mhm.
5 years of blogging, which I've been doing, and I have reached, I think I saved about 2, came back to me and says, "Thank you for what you wrote and thank you for what you talk about." Uh, if you can reach out and affect at least 2 people, one person, that makes this whole thing successful. And that's why we need more people, because if you can get, you know, uh, a couple thousand people throughout the United States talking about this all the time, and bringing awareness to different agencies, then that'll help out. One of the biggest problems I see right now is about around 50%, less than maybe 50% of all police departments are under 50 sworn. They're very small. And
Yep,
reaching,
yep.
when I came from a department of 10,000 sworn, 18,000 employed. Los Angeles Police Department's right around 8,500 right now, 9,000. California Highway Patrol's right around the same numbers. FBI is probably, I think, about 12 or 14,000. Chicago PD, they're what, like 20 some odd thousand. NYPD, 35,000. These big agencies. it's easy to talk about it because we're big and there's a lot of people into it. But when you get down to a small agency of 50 people, or you get down to some of these agencies where there's 6 or 10 people and the chief of police is doing tours on duty, patrol tours, it's hard to reach them because they're more isolated from what we're talking about. And that's where I hope that all of us, through being a guest on podcast, through your guys' podcast, through a couple other podcasts that are out there talking about the issue, that we can just continue to educate, continue to tell people, hey, there is light at the end of the tunnel. You don't have to live in this darkness. Or as a friend of mine always says, you have a choice. You can either stand in one place or you can move forward. And that's march or die. You can either stand in one place or you can march forward and move forward. And that's what we have to do. And, as one podcast I was listening to, your guest, here we go, Griff, is talking about, if today is a good day to die, then tomorrow's a good day to die too. That was his theology. It's the same thing: the march or die, or the sleep or swim, or the sink or swim. I'm going to throw a little bit of God into you because you need it right now, you heathens. But back in the Bible, when Moses took the Hebrews out of Egypt, they were floated around the desert for 40 years, and they were always complaining that they had nothing to eat. Well, what God sent down is he sent down manna every day. He sent down a supply of what they called manna. They ate it. If they tried to store it for later, it went rancid and got bad. And every day he would provide you. Well, that's how, when we're dealing with our issues, that's how we have to do it the same way. Griff said it his way. I use sink or swim. My buddy Jeremy, he uses march or die. We all have our ways, but that's what we have to do. It's not let's look at how we're going to deal with this one for the week. Let's look at how we're going to do it today, and then we can deal with it again tomorrow. And that's the message that we need to get out, because a lot of guys go, well, I went to suicide prevention. It didn't do anything. Well, how about a little bit of suicide education? And then you can do it day by day instead of week by week. What is that? AA, theirs is one day at a time. It's that same theology. I win today, tomorrow's a whole new day. I got to win it. So if we can continue to reach people with that thought process, I believe we can win the battle. And I think we slowly are, because the numbers over the last 5 years had dropped dramatically. When we went from 1 year of 248 to the last year of 128. But we're still sitting at around 22 suicides per 100,000 per year. So that puts us up in the 140-ish mark. And it's just scary. We were talking about PTSI and PTSD for the soldiers in our military. They have about the same rate as law enforcement. Active duty military right now, they have about a 2.2 per 100,000, a 2.2 greater chance of dying by suicide than a civilian. Retired or separated military, they're at about the same as law enforcement, where I said previously, law enforcement is about 1.4 chance greater than a civilian. Retired or separated military, they're about the same there, I think at 1.5. And so organizations on both groups are going out and trying to educate people that we are at a greater risk. You have to understand, from the day you signed up for the job, you're going to be experiencing things that you can't see. And it's been said many a times, a normal human being, in their lifetime, they may experience 2 or 3 life-changing and things, life-threatening things, anything in their lifetime. Where in law enforcement, the numbers can be anywhere from a couple of hundred to thousands. And I depend on where you work, because I remember when I was working in Compton, and I'd jump in a radio car to work an overtime spot or a carp spot, handling patrol. There were days when you just rode red lights and sirens to every call, because it was either a shooting, a stabbing, or someone getting beat up, or officers requesting help. And it was just constant trauma all day long. And it's to put it in perspective, a guy working for a department of 10 officers, he's still going to see sufficient trauma, especially a lot of the towns in the Midwest where there's like one street that goes through the whole town, and you know, they're gonna be seeing these really bad car accidents and just nasty truck versus car crashes and stuff that you don't see in the big city, because in the big city car crashes, well, nowadays you see pretty bad car crashes, but a lot of the car crashes there just were fender benders for the longest time.
Yep. It still troubles me that the leadership in the profession doesn't seem to be doing a lot with this. And I know we'd had some conversation about how it was kind of crickets from the sheriff's office in LA vis-a-vis that those actually 5 suicides that occurred. The 4 in one day, and then the one within 30 days. I'm worried we're not talking about it formally as leadership.
It's when I was researching some stuff a couple months ago, I came across a slideshow that was made by the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department's Psychological Services Bureau in about 2001. I'd never seen this slideshow. I don't know where they played it at, who they played it for. I've never heard of it being played for anywhere. But they came up with a number that's disturbing to me. They came up with an agency the size of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. So an agency the size of, let's just say 7,500 to 10,000 officers could expect up to 2 officer suicides a year. And that just blows me away, because I've like I said, I've never seen the video, or the slideshow, not until I came across a website that from the International Association of Chiefs of Police. I saw it, and I'm just looking, I go, where did this come from? Because I've never heard anybody from our psychological services talking about it. And I have a friend who's a retired chief from the sheriff's department, and so the chief would be 3 steps down from the sheriff. He would be the same like a colonel in the military, where he is in charge of an entire division or something like that. And I always told him, I go, it's the management isn't really care about a lot of things, because on Monday morning and Tuesday morning, all they're concerned about is their golf handicap. And I worked, my last unit of assignment was that we would patrol the county parks and county-owned property, like the Hollywood Bowl. That's owned by Parks and Recreation, and we patrolled it. It was kind of fun. And a lot of our parks, we have pocket parks that were all throughout South Central LA and Watts, and those were fun because you'd always have a shooting in there. And they had Los Angeles County had a gazillion golf courses. I think they have like 47 that's owned by the county. And I'd drive out to one golf course every week on a Monday morning, and you'd see the same executive cars parked at the golf course playing golf. And you guys are supposed to be at an office meeting right now talking about how screwed up we were over the weekend, and you're out playing golf. You don't really give a crap about the working guy.
Yep.
And to me, it got to the point as the higher you got, I was kind of, at one time I wanted to be a captain when I first came on. I was glad I left as a sergeant, because it seems like the higher you get, the more disassociated you get with the working people. And
a lot of truth to that.
And I've seen it, and I know a lot of good executives that would stand by the working people, or stand by their deputies, but there's a lot of crappy ones out there. And that's what's a shame. And I think that's the whole big holdup now within the departments. Now, what last May, in May, a retired chief from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, his daughter, who was a deputy, died by suicide. And that was, I think, the 3rd suicide of the year. And that really shook it because it was publicized. And the president of the sergeant and lieutenant union um, called me up, and she knew that I was blogging about law enforcement suicide and about PTSI and law enforcement issues in general. And she asked me to write an article about it. And I had already had an article that I written and had put it out on a blog, so I updated it. At the same time, I got a call from a person that's deeply involved in the American Legion, and he's part of a law enforcement post at the American Legion. He asked for the same thing. So my article on law enforcement suicide was published in um, the American Legion's one of their papers. It was published in Stars and Stripes magazine that's through the Professional Peace Officers Association of Los Angeles County. And then I also got it published on the Law Enforcement Today website.
Okay, yeah.
And it's done very well. It got it out, but it seems more that the unions and the military agencies or associations are more interested in helping people than the actual departments are, because they're the ones that are asking, hey, can you help me with this? What can I do about this? I've had people call me up from the unions and say, who do I call, or who can I tell people to call if they need help? And it's actually pretty simple, but that information should be in the stations, every place, on your briefing board, wherever you do. I have about 9x6 flyers from Copline that go to different police stations, and whenever I get a hold of them, I will give them out to my buddies that are still working in the general area where I live. And I have a whole bunch of friends that are part of the Copline, so I can get the information from them. And it's as easy as sending out if you need help, get help email, or if you need help, get help with a Copline flyer or a cop to cop flyer on it, on a Facebook post to the different law enforcement Facebook groups. And that's what we're doing, and that's what we have to do. And I think that's why we're starting to see the numbers come down. And I hope the trend keeps coming down, but right now with 18 and 48 days, we're kind of holding even on what we were doing the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. It worries me sometimes that we're trapped in that cycle where everybody's short bodies, so everybody's working more. The mandatory overtime is there. It can be excessive. And because, again, we are short, it's it's a wheel. It just keeps spinning and spinning, and you can't get out of it. And at the same time, I'm retired, Denny's out, and you sometimes think, hey, I want these young folks to come in and take this up and do 25, 30 years themselves. And I look at my own kids and I go,
yeah,
I'm not sure I'd want them to do that.
It's kind of weird. I know a 21-year-old.
Same thing is, you got to have somebody's got to come in.
Yeah.
Right.
I know a 21-year-old kid that just got recently hired and it's gone through the local sheriff's academy where he lives at, and he's having fun. And this is all he's wanted to do, is he's wanted to be a cop in the city that he lives in, and he's enjoying it so far. But that's few and far between. It's
yeah, it really is.
When the times change, and it's starting to change now because our political parties in power right now are starting to realize, like, hey, we really screwed up by making petty theft $9,000 or $900 in California what it is now. You see a guy going into an Apple store.
We did it in Virginia.
Yeah.
It's $1,000.
I think out here it's $940 or $980.
It's up to $1,000 for a misdemeanor.
Crazy
in Virginia.
Yeah, and there was a video I saw a couple of days ago on YouTube. It was a guy that goes into a Apple store, and he's just walking down the aisle, ripping the Apple phones off their cords. And he goes down one aisle. He took about 20 phones, and he just walked out the store. There was a San Francisco police car parked right in front of the Apple store. Who knows where the cop was? He was probably in the donut shop. That's where I'd be. But
Right.
and he just, like, there's no consequence. But that's slowly changing because people are starting to realize, especially in some of the sanctuary cities, that they can't afford this high crime anymore. They can't afford large corporations shutting down stores in their cities and moving out to a safer area. I mean,
Yep.
one of a big thing in California, if you guys ever get out here again, is In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
been.
I've heard
been.
all about it. Never been, but I hear
Yeah.
all about
I mean,
In-N-Out Burger. It's on
In-N-Out
every damn
is a-
movie.
In-N-Out and Tommy's Burgers. In-N-Out is a big thing, and it's a big California thing. We're now, In-N-Out is now through 11 states or something like that, maybe 9 states. But in the city of Oakland, a city that has lost the Raiders to Vegas because of crime. They're
Yep.
getting ready to lose the Oakland A's, a Major League Baseball team, going to go to who knows where they're going to go, probably Vegas, because
Anywhere
of
but
crime.
Oakland.
In-N-Out closed one of their only store in Oakland because of
Oh,
crime.
wow.
Target's a international department store. They closed their only store in Oakland down because of crime.
Yep.
And now I think what's going to happen is once the tide turns, because I call it a pendulum, and
Yeah.
this isn't any different than what we've been through 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 40
Sure.
years ago. In the 90s during the Rodney King, it was no different from then. And so the pendulum is going to start to swing back the other way. And people are going to say, you know what, I can become a cop. I'm going to be a cop because these idiots don't need to be out here on the street. And we're going to start putting people in jail again. The laws are going to change again. And the Nobel thing will go away again. And it'll get back to some sort of order. It'll be a disordered order, but it'll be some type of order. It will never be back to the way it was in Mayberry. And it'll never be back to the way it was, about 15 years ago. But it's going to swing back the opposite way. And hopefully that will lighten up a lot of the depression on the guys. I mean, when you're sitting in a car at a red light in front of the sheriff's station you work at, looking down at your computer to type in that you're going to a call, and some asshat comes up behind you and puts a cap in the back of your head. Who wants to be a cop when they see that? When you see a YouTube video of a New York policeman sitting in his car and some jerk off comes up behind him and starts shooting into the back of his head through the driver's window. I mean, who'd want to be a cop? And once the pendulum swings and that starts going away because these idiots will be put in jail, then people will start to say, okay, I'll do this now. Because even our military doesn't do that, other than they have to worry about roadside bombs and IEDs, but they don't have the bad guys sneaking up behind them and putting a cap in them while they're sitting there eating lunch at Starbucks or any place they go. It just doesn't happen. And our cops that's what we're experiencing. It's been going on since this administration, sadly.
Yep, it has. And
well, you guys, I think, had one of the largest rates of people leaving the state if anywhere else in the country. Just taxpayers up
people
and leaving,
fleeing. Yep.
California. I'm hoping they go somewhere other than Virginia, but it doesn't seem to matter to the folks out your way.
Well, hopefully the people that are selling their houses and moving out of state after they make a couple million on them, hopefully they all vote blue, and so this will be a red state again, because that's the people that like it here want to keep it nice.
That's just going to help that pendulum swing back the other way.
Yeah, that's what it needs. It's in LA they have a DA that just doesn't believe in justice. He believes that I think everybody should be free. Although
that's becoming widespread, and we're seeing that in Virginia too.
Yeah, you got that in Virginia. You got that in Atlanta. You got that in St. Louis. I believe New York's. I mean, they really screwed the pooch there. But
gosh, they have just gone.
Well, that's a state.
Yeah.
New York's legislature passed that, and of course, then you got the guys walking out of lockup, giving the finger to the reporters.
But that's where those, these things just cannot be sustained. It can't be sustained. It's just a matter of time before people realize that this cannot go on like this. It's just how long is it going to take for people to get their head out their ass and realize it's not going to work like this. None of that can be sustained for but so long.
And it all contributes to
It's
the
what
mental stress of the job.
Yeah, oh yeah.
that is like just a major stressor is,
Yeah.
you know, it used to be, I'm going to go to work, and the little bit of thought in the back of the mind goes, well, maybe I won't get home tonight. But more so, the little bit thought at the back of your head was, I just don't know what time I'm going to get off work, because you're going to get held over, something's going to
Yep.
happen, and that's just the part of the job. Now you go to work, and that little part of, am I going to come home at the end of the shift, isn't a little part anymore. It's a major thought process in your head. And I see that's why a lot of guys are, and I saw it out here for a couple of years. Guys would just go park, and they'd be like the fire department. They'd just go call for service and then go park. They wouldn't do anything proactive, because they don't want to do anything that could harm them, harm them physically, mentally, or career-wise.
And we see that here.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes on here.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
Particularly in the state capital, Richmond. And it's not, I think it's less about a fear of personal safety. I think most of the folks that are on the job are pretty secure in that. But when you talk to them, it's like, why am I going to do something that's going to make me criminally liable, civilly liable, put me on YouTube, put me on the evening news? And when that happens, the agency and City Hall are going to throw me under the bus, which they've done.
Well, yeah, you could do everything right, but if they don't like the way it looks, now they're going to make an example of you. Now they're going to hang you out to dry.
Yeah.
And
I think the farther we get away from Minneapolis, the calmer it will be. That's what happened in Los Angeles after Rodney King. I mean, it was a rough couple of years there. And the farther we got away from it, the better it got for the nation. And I think the farther we get away from Minneapolis, that it's going to get better. Obviously, we know now what happened in Atlanta was a lie. So we'll never come back. And that was where the police officer had his taser taken away, so he shot and killed the suspect.
Yeah.
And the DA goes, "Oh, that was murder." And it turned out that the same DA said a couple of weeks before, use your taser. So
Right.
Yeah.
so we know that was a big lie. And there's a couple other big lies out there. We knew St. Louis several years ago, that was a big lie. So Minneapolis we need to distance ourselves from that. And I think the pendulum will start to swing a little bit faster.
Hopefully so.
And secure our southern border, but that's a different story for another podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole nother show, right?
Oh, I know.
But Danny, man, it really sounds like you're doing a lot for, after, post-retirement. It sounds like you're really doing a lot to try to help those that are on the job still, and those that are still kind of carrying that torch. I think that's really great, the things that you're doing and how you're trying to, really bring the education and the conversation. Because Al and I both agree that we think the biggest part of it is having the conversations, the stuff that people don't want to talk about. And it sounds like you're really doing a great job with that. And that's, kudos to you after retirement, that you're still finding a way, that you're giving back, that you're still serving, even though you've served your 30 years, but you're still serving the community and your fellow law enforcement. So that's really great.
Well, I thank you for that. And, you guys are doing the same thing. I believe that when you retire, you don't really retire from the job. You just kind of move on to a different part. And now, instead of serving the public, we're serving those who are following behind us. And if I may kind of throw out a couple of phone numbers and organizations.
Absolutely, and I was just about to ask, how can people find you?
Yeah, your website and everything, please.
Okay, my website is bulletprooffirstresponder.com. It's all one word plus a .com. And I post a blog monthly. And this year I'm doing a little bit different from my last several years, is I'm posting a blog every month on wellness. And I'm going to throw every once in a while, when I get a wild hair, I'll throw in another blog, like I'm working on one for law enforcement about integrity, because that's always an issue. And that's just a kind of like a recurrent briefing, as we used to have.
Yeah.
And then I am the author of a book called Broken. It's BRO semicolon KEN. And it's Broken: Understanding the Effects of Post-Traumatic Stress, and it's on Amazon. And if you're wondering about the semicolon, the semicolon for writers is used as a break instead of a period. Well, in the mental health world, a semicolon is a symbol of taking a break and taking that step forward, looking at today as another day to die, looking at not sinking or swimming. It's just a break so you can move forward instead of dying at that point. So that's why the semicolon there is it's a mental health awareness thing. But it's called Broken: Understanding the Effects of Post-Traumatic Stress. The best way to find it is just when you're in Amazon, on Amazon's search bar, type in my name, Danny Coon, and it will pop up. The book will pop up. Also, I'd like to plug in for Copline. Copline and Cop to Cop are two peer-supported law enforcement only resources for counseling, immediate counseling, and suicide intervention. So if you have thoughts of suicidal ideations or thoughts of suicide, you can call either one, Copline or Cop to Cop. And I know Copline is retired police officers who are trained, and I know that the Cop to Cop, I don't know if they're retired or active duty, but I know that they are also specifically trained for some type of intervention. And Copline is 1-800-COPLINE or 1-800-267-5463. And they can also have their website is copline.org. And then Cop to Cop, their phone number is 866-COP-to-COP or 866-267-2267. And their website is njcoptocop.com. And then there's two organizations. They're international organizations that serve both the military community, the veteran community, and the first responder community. They're both faith-based, but one is the Mighty Oaks Foundation, and they have several conferences specifically for first responders. They're week-long conferences throughout the United States, and another one is Reboot Recovery, and they have different resources throughout the United States that offer not training, but offer resilience for officers who need or in the need help. Also, lastly, my stats come from the Officer Down Memorial page for line of duty death, and the Blue Help, bluehelp.org, which tracks since 2017, 2018, tracks law enforcement suicide. There is now also the same organization from Blue Help is First Help, and they track all first responder suicides. So those are all the organizations that where I get my information and that I would like to support. So.
Well, thank you very much. We are actually very familiar with Reboot.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of their folks on.
Yeah.
And stay in pretty regular contact with their folks local to us.
Yep.
Very good. Yeah, I think Mighty Oaks, while they're nationwide, or actually both of them are international. Mighty Oaks is nationwide. Their headquarters used to be out of Southern California. Now they're out of Texas. And Reboot, I believe they're East Coast based. Or
I think so. Yeah. I mean, they're here. I mean, they do the classes close to us here, actually.
Yeah.
And we're actually trying to get our schedule where if we figured out till we can go attend, we definitely want to attend. It's just trying to squeeze that in, but we do stay in touch with folks from Reboot here in Virginia.
Good organization.
Great. They really are. They really are. But
well, I thank you, gentlemen, for having me with you and inviting me onto your podcast. It's been a great experience. So,
well, Danny, it's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely.
You were really out there doing the Lord's work, and we're thankful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. It's been great having you, and thank you for reaching out to us. This has been a great talk and great information. And you, again, thank you so much for what you're doing. And I know you're making a difference, absolutely making a difference out there.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Danny.
Okay, you guys have a great evening.
You as well. All right.
What a good dude.
Man, Danny, he really was. I think it's awesome that he reached out to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and he's really passionate.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, and I didn't know a whole lot. I just got a little bit from his bio and a little bit about, what he has been doing, but not a lot of information. So, and I kind of liked it that way because as we're recording, I'm learning about what he's doing. I'm hearing it. I like hearing it fresh as opposed to knowing everything up front, I guess. It was just, I felt like I was getting to know him as we're doing the podcast and what he's all about, which is awesome.
It's really nice to see somebody who, he retired 2013, he said?
Yeah.
So here we are 11 years later, and he could have easily said, to hell with this. I'm going fishing.
Yeah. I'll be on
a motorcycle.
I'll be on a golf course.
Buying an RV. To hell with this.
Yeah.
I'm out.
But he's got a website. He wrote a book. He's doing blogs. Man, he's really been active.
Yeah. And frankly, we need more Dannys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how we're going to make a turn in this thing. The other thing that struck me, and I didn't bring it up in the podcast, was, because he did mention that, in his day, they really didn't talk about suicide. I mean, in my day, we didn't need it.
No.
We hardly talked about trauma. They mentioned it, but suicide, you definitely really didn't talk about. But, for his generation of law enforcement, that really wasn't talked about, even more so than ours. He predates us. So for him to go all the way through that career and then finish and then see some things that are going on that he doesn't like and go, man, wow, I need to do something about this was pretty good, pretty impressive.
And he's right. We still don't talk about it. I mean, we've had instances here. We've had recent instances locally. And it just doesn't, it's kind of,
yeah.
Don't talk about that.
Yeah. It's like you're afraid to discuss it.
And we need to be talking about it. And, more importantly, there need to be resources to address it when it is found. And so to see him working in that field as well, being able to connect people to resources.
And he brought something up too about how when he started hearing about those things and he, after law enforcement, started to kind of dig up stuff that he experienced that he'd kind of been tucking away. And that's something I think that's very important. And folks in the profession need to realize that when you leave, whether you leave by retirement or you just leave, or whether you're forced out or whatever, but no matter what the manner in which you leave, you still experienced a lot of things, and there's a good chance it's going to come back up. It's going to kind of rear its ugly head afterwards. So, that might lead us to some other episodes where we talk about transitioning out.
Yes, and I believe we have one of those coming up here pretty shortly.
Yeah, I think that's going to be good too. So, good stuff. But now that wraps up another episode.
I believe that it does.
And where can they find us?
They can find us on badgetothebone.com. They can email us at wearebadgetothebone@gmail.com. They can also find us on Facebook at Badge to the Bone.
Outstanding. And make sure, please, to like and follow us. Make sure to share the podcast. But until then, be safe
and be well.